Welcome back to the channel, family, and another podcast. My name is Paul. I'm a very happy member of C.A, and I'm absolutely delighted to have been joined by Max.
Hello, I'm Max. I'm an addict from Northamptonshire.
Welcome back to the channel. I trust that life's treating you well, family. Thanks for tuning in today. Please bear in mind you can like and subscribe for future content. We're not spokespersons for C.A. We're simply members sharing our experience, strength, and hope. Please feel free to check out the other podcasts on the channel. There's 14 on the 12 steps because there's 2 on step 1, 2 on step 2. We're doing a series currently with 2/3 through the traditions. So there's going to be an entire 12 broadcasts on the traditions. There's also about 15 personal stories. And then we've just started a new format where there's 3 or 4 of us and we basically have a meeting and put it out there on YouTube, intherooms.com, Skype and WhatsApp for folks to be strengthened in their recovery. So please check out the other podcasts. In this broadcast, there'll be information about meetings, how to get to Zoom meetings and face-to-face meetings. We're all about recovery and hope, faith and courage and a new way to live. So as I say, I'm really, really pleased that Max has come along today to share his story with us. So without further ado, it is over to you.
Thank you very much, Paul. I want to start by saying it's a privilege to be able to do this bit of service. I'm very thankful to be able to do it. I think, in a way, it keeps me keeps me clean and sober at the end of the day. So, and it's good to be able to give hope from my experience as well, because that's what I got at the start. That's what helped me out a lot at the start, was hearing other addicts share their experience and getting something from their experience. And but yeah, so I suppose it started for me. My mum and my dad, they separated at an early age, about 2. There was a lot of trauma there. There was a lot of domestic violence, like drinking and stuff. And I ended up going to live with my mum about say about 20 miles away from my house now. And she's bipolar, and she struggles with alcoholic addiction and drug addiction and all sorts of things. So it was always, I suppose, my childhood was always strange, and there was a lot going on, and there was a lot of pain and stuff. But yeah, I remember. So, I'm going to get on. I'm going to skip to about the age of 8 or 9 now. So I think this is where I remember the disease of addiction being a part of my life, and it was. I remember acting out at school, wanting everyone to like me, like being the class clown and stuff, and that was like, and then from I still do that now. It was, and I'm just getting to the crux of it now. And this was the thing I always used on. It was the fear of not being enough. Always used on it my whole life. It was part of everything I did. It affected everything I did. It affected the way I behaved and everything. And it was like the reason, one of the core belief, the core reason why I used it. It was, I always acted for everyone else, because I wasn't happy, I suppose, with the way I was, with who I was. So I acted someone else, and I put on this mask and that mask, So yeah, that was age of 8 or 9. I was always acting out at school. I was and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, like I said, my mum was still sick with addiction. When I was about 8 or 9, she was still sick, and I ended up moving back to my dad's house at 10, and and it carried on. You know, my behaviour and all that. I carried on, and I was still getting into loads of trouble at school. You know, I was throwing eggs at buses, and you know, just like classic sort of stuff. You know, and smoking weed, and all that. You know, so I like I said, I was just carrying on getting excluded at school multiple times. You know, I remember I always acted like this because I wanted everyone to like me, you know, and I'll get to like 15 or 16 and I couldn't get into any more trouble at school. So I remember this was like a turning point for me where it was like, you know, I sort of butts my ideas up and I started withdrawing myself. I remember being a very outgoing person, very loud person. And then I started, you know, going inside. You know, I don't know, but this is what I remember anyway. At 15 or 16, I was going back inside myself, and yeah, I remember this was a point in my life where I started, you know, I was gaming a lot, on PS3 and stuff, and that became a major obsession for me. You know, I was on that all the time. It affected what I was doing at school and all, you know, and people outside were noticing it. So that was like the start of my obsessive behaviour, I suppose. You know, I always had that as well, like the obsessive, addictive behaviour, personality, I suppose, you know. Yeah. So, yeah. So it was like a way to escape, you know, the way I felt inside, you know, with all that, with the gaming and stuff. So, yeah. And then, so at this age, 15, I've already tried weed and alcohol. You know, it wasn't like, I think it's the same with a lot of addicts, you know. That's how it starts for a lot of people. How it's like weed and alcohol. So, you know, and yeah, and it was all like I remember I never tried these. It was never to do them socially. It was always just to get absolutely obliterated, absolutely hammered. That's one of the main reasons why I took them. So yeah, and so I've still got all this confidence issues going on, and it's getting worse and worse and worse, which I know now is well, in the big book, it's described as a spiritual malady. And, you know, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. That is like my perception of myself, and it's affected my relationships with other people. You know, I'm not, because I don't think I'm enough. I'm like, you know, I'm acting out and trying to do different things for people to like me, and then they notice it, and now I'm looking desperate, and it's just really unattractive, and you know, and I end up, yeah, like all this time, I suppose, you know, I've had a decent group of friends at school. You know, I've got a relatively stable family. I'm very, very well looked after. You know, there's, and I can't, you know, I can't say, I suppose, you know, the path I've took is the path I've took, but at the same time, yeah, I suppose I didn't need to do the things that I was doing, which is getting involved in cocaine and alcohol and use them the way I use them. There was no need for me to do that, you know. But you know, it's happened. So, yeah, I'd say at the age of, I think it was 17/18, this when I got a car, and it was like the thing I'd been looking forward to. It was like I had all this stuff bottled up. I remember it. I had all these feelings bottled up, and I was like, "I want to get this car. I'm gonna have so much more freedom. I'm gonna be able to do what I want, go where I want." And I just remember getting, just feeling like I was going to explode when I got my car. I got my car, like that's exactly what I did. Not long after I got my car, I was drink driving, tried cocaine for the first time, getting involved with some pretty dodgy people. And then I started going on benders and stuff. And I remember the first time I really tried cocaine. It was it didn't really do anything for me. I don't feel like it didn't the first time, but then the second time, it was like it was like all the confidence, it was because the issue I had, I never felt connected, I never felt confidence, but when I tried cocaine, it made me feel connected. It gave me a confidence I never had, and I always wanted, and I had, freedom, no rules, all that stuff. It was the best feeling. It was the best feeling, I had ever had at that point. And it was followed by the worst feeling, and that was the come down. And straight after that, I decided, that's it. I'm never doing it again. Never doing it again ever, for whatever reason. And because I remember this, like the first. I knew that. I knew who I was as a person. I knew that I had an addictive personality, and I knew, and I remember on my first proper bender, it was, I was in a place called Kettering. It was, I'd say, 10 miles from my house, something like that. And I remember it was like 3 in the morning. I ran out of money, 3 or 4 in the morning. I ran out of money. I drove all the way from Kettering back to my house to get a box off the top of my wardrobe that had cash in it. And I drove all the way back to Kettering to wait to pick up more cocaine. And that was the obsession I had when I, nothing, I suppose nothing would have stopped me. If I had the money and I could get it, then I would get it. Nothing. When I put one in, I can't. I struggle to stop. I can't stop. Because I don't want to feel sober again. But yeah, either way, I after all that happened, on the first bender, I decided I'd never do it again ever. And I spent all my money, and because I suffer with what I suffer with, I get what's called the mental twist, and this was baffling. This was very baffling, and I said, I suppose it was the way it really went for me. This is the way I always describe it. It's not always like this, but for a lot of the time it was I'd get on it on the weekend, Friday to Sunday or whatever it was, and then Monday I'll be like, I'm never doing it again. Same with Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm never ever doing it again. Thursday comes along, I'm starting to feel a little bit better, and I'm like, then the whole week I'm completely consumed by it, and consumed by regret, and consumed by, I spent all my money, like all that stuff. And then it gets to Friday, I'm like justifying it, I'm arguing with myself all day. And sometimes I'd get away, sometimes I'll be able to just have one drink, like scrape by the weekend and not do it, but the next weekend I'll let it double hard, but it'd always be Monday, it'd get to Friday and I'd be like, I'll give myself all day, and it gets to the end of the day and I'll just crumble, and and I decided I'm doing it again, and it was like that for on and off, like 3 or 4 years, something like that. And, in that time I was stealing money off my sister at one point. I was you know, it was causing my family no end of worry, no end of worry. I too got involved in armed robberies with people, and there were stabbings going on with people that I knew and that I was, you know, I was involved in as well, and I almost, and yeah, it was just my life was just a very, it was a car crash, you know, it was spiraling, it was very chaotic, very, into my mind, it was very chaotic, and I was very arrogant, I was very, you know, naive as well, very, very naive, and yeah, so I think I'd go through periods in this 3 years. I'd go through periods of stopping out of fear, and you know, I think every addict's done this, where I stopped out of fear for a while, and just drank. And I remember there was one time after finding out I had to go to court and I could be going to prison. I'd stopped doing cocaine for like 6 or 7 months. I don't remember exactly, but it's something like that. And I remember just drinking. I remember just going up to the shop, buying a crate of alcohol or whatever, and then just drinking until I was sick, and then go to bed. And the next morning I'd be drinking again. And yeah, it was like that. And then and I thought I was okay because I was just drinking. And I think every addict goes through this, and you know, if justifying it and stuff like that. Yeah, and then I got to a point where, because I wasn't working no program or nothing, and cocaine was always my thing, and it was always the thing it was the feeling I longed for, and then I ended up going back to it, and you know, really, just really affected me, really deeply, spiritually affected me, going back to him. And it's like, what have I done? It was just an absolute battle. Absolutely, it was the battle of my life, I think. Yeah, and I think so. Towards the end of my using, it was obviously it just got worse and worse. It does for every addict, and I was spending more money than I ever spent. I was doing more than I ever done, and it was this was the point where you know, it was escalating and escalating, and how much I'd spent. I spent a lot of money anyway, and I was on it all weekend. And I remember I didn't go into work on the Monday, and I was carried on smoking weed and stuff. And I remember aiming to go into work on a Tuesday, and I felt
Max, could you move just a little bit closer to the microphone, Max?
Is that better? Where was I?
That's fine. You're fine.
Cool. Well, either way, so I remember it was at the end of my using anyway, and I got struck down with COVID, and yeah, I remember crawling back to my dad's house and trying to lie through my teeth about everything, saying that I'm not doing what I'm doing, I'm doing all right. And I remember breaking to my dad and my sister, just telling them absolutely everything, and that I genuinely want to help. You know, I remember, yeah, and I'm not sure how I felt about it this time, but I was pretty willing at this stage because I gave my dad all my money. Yeah, I gave my dad all my money, and I said I'd ring this people called C.A. I had a counsellor that told me about C.A. a few months before, but I never rang her. I never rang them, but for some reason it stuck in my head, and yeah, I rang them the next day, the next morning, and the first thing I really heard was hope, and it was I remember what he said. It was focus on the solution and not the problem. And I don't know what it was about that. It was, you know, it was just, yeah, it was just very, very hope giving. It felt like the person that I spoke to knew he had a solution. You know, knew what he was on about. So yeah, I heard, yeah, like I said, I heard something in the man's voice that I'd never heard. 10 minutes after, I just remember getting loads and loads of phone calls, loads of WhatsApp messages, of all people wanting to take me to meetings and support me. And I was speaking to loads of people, um, and yeah, that's what I really, I'm so grateful for today, and what still saves me today is the absolute selflessness of people in CA, and yeah, it's yeah, it makes me want to cry when I think about it sometimes, but yeah, yeah. So one of these people that rang me anyway, turned out to be, he ended up being my sponsor, and I remember really, really connecting with him, like I've never connected with any person before. See, he knew absolutely he knew how my mind worked out, because my mind worked the same as his mind worked. It was, I've never, I've never heard of anyone talking about addiction like these people talk about addiction. It was really fascinating to me. Really interested, and I was really interested in, yeah. So um, yeah, so I ended up talking to loads of people in CA, and I got a sponsor pretty much straight away. I couldn't go to face meetings because I had COVID, but I was still getting involved in doing book work, and I was at this point I was like, just what do I need to do? I want what you have. I want it, and yeah, and then so I embarked on this journey, I suppose, of just getting on Zoom meetings, and then I ended up going face to face meetings, connecting up with people in CA, and going to my sponsor's house, driving to his house after work, you know, uh, getting involved in book work, just doing what I had to do, doing what I was told to do, because I was so desperate, Um, so yeah, and then I remember the early days were very tough for me. Um, I definitely did have moments where I where I really wanted to use, and in them moments, um, I'd call someone in CA, and I'd be talked. I'd always be talked down from the ledge. I'd never have used from them thoughts and feelings, Um, and that's what they're there for. That's what the people in CA are there for, to be used to for their experience, and they're there to help as well. Um, so yeah, I remember probably like 30 days into my journey, the obsession sort of went. I didn't really want to use anymore, but I still, and then now I'm stuck with my actual self, and this has been the problem all along. And I knew it sort of straight. I knew it sort of straight away. It was like revealed to me. It said it talked about the CA anyway. And it sort of revealed to me, um, that I'm myself. I'm the problem the whole way through. And yeah. So yeah, I'm a very very shy person. Well, I was a very nervous person, very anxious person, very panicky person. When I first came in, I was a nervous wreck. And then people started noticing the difference in me. I started, because what I've always remained is, there's been times where I haven't been, but most of the time I have been open-minded, willing, and honest about in my recovery. And I think the biggest part of my recovery is God, and that's I remember coming into CA, and I remember my sponsor talking about God, and I had no issue. I had no issue with believing in God. you know, because I was just open-minded to it. And, you know, I was just so desperate. I was like, if you're saying that's going to help me, I'm going to do it. And I remember being really attracted to my sponsors, the way he spoke about God, the way he spoke about his relationship with God, and how God was, and it was really attractive to me. So I just spoke to God as a friend, you know, and as a mate, you know. And I remember my sponsor telling me, he was like, you take one step towards God, he would take 10 towards you. And I remember he did. God did, you know. And yeah. So yeah, I find that's where I get my strength from. Either way, you know, it's from prayer and meditation. That they were them two things were the first two things what my sponsor told me to do was prayer and meditation. And you know, yeah, I got involved in doing them, and then I started reaching out, connecting with other people in CN, and all these things together. I didn't feel like using it at all. So yeah, I suppose like I said, it hasn't always been easy. At times it's just been pure like perseverance and faith and trust, you know, because I don't know what's going to be on the other end, but I know I do know it's going to be what I'm doing now. I do know whatever I face, that on the other end, it's going to be better than what I was doing before. You know, that's what I had with me at the start. You know, that's what I had with me where I just didn't want to go back to what I was doing, and now I had a way out. You know, but yeah, I suppose in this program I felt the happiness like I've never felt before. I felt confidence like I've never felt before. I'm finding who I really am as a person. You know, I've got confidence that I always sought through cocaine and drink and masks and stuff. And I still struggle. I still have to keep on top of it. I still have to work on myself. You know, I still have to try and keep in check best I can. I still have moments where, you know, I just yeah, there's still things I get stuck on. There's still things that I get stuck on today, but I know that there's not even once does it come into my head, doesn't even come into the equation for me to go and drink or use. You know, I've just been on an absolute blast of a holiday in Portugal, and you know, people are drinking there and stuff, and I had I just had power. It was like people asked me if I wanted a drink. It's like being deflected off me, like no, you know. So it's yeah, it was a really good experience. I was able to be myself best I could. You know, there was still times where I put, you know, try and be someone I'm not. You know, I still do that from time to time. It's dishonesty, but you know, I'm working on it best I can. You know, so and yeah, I suppose I think that's about my story. You know, I've that's that. I think I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Great to hear, Max. Beautiful message. Beautiful. Great to hear you, and privileged to share this journey with you. And you know, we do recover. We do get well in these rooms, and we can stay well. You know, sobriety is much more than physical sobriety, isn't it? You know, mental sobriety, emotional sobriety. You know, and that gentle, calm demeanor comes across. You know, I've been privileged to know you, well, a substantial amount of time now. You know, and you know, a power of example of the fellowship and the program, and you know, taking clear-cut direction, and you know, your willingness to work with others as well. You know, and your proactivity in the program, meeting attendance, service, all these vital ingredients. You know, bookwork, and you and I have done some work together, haven't we?
Yeah.
You know, and it's just been a privilege to share the journey with you. You know, so I'm really pleased you've come on the channel. I just have a few half-time announcements for our listeners. So in a few minutes, I'll be putting something on the screen about meetings, and you know, the suggestions that we give. Our regular meeting attendance, find a home group, an online home group, and a face-to-face home group if you can. Build and maintain a support network of half a dozen folk that you can call and you know, maintain connection with them. Have a commitment to reading through literature. We have on the screen at the moment what we call the big book, which is called Alcoholics Anonymous, which can be read or listened to completely free anytime at aa.org. So we strongly suggest a commitment to reading a minimum of a couple of pages every day. The program is the first 164 pages of the big book. We also strongly suggest to find yourself some of your personal spiritual literature and read a couple of pages of that every day. We strongly suggest prayer and meditation, you know, throughout the day, and consistent step work with a sponsor, you know, and good self-care. And you know, everyone, Max, that I've known take those clear-cut directions and do those things so far has stayed sober. You know, they have. You know, that's been my experience. It really has. And you know, so if you're still using drugs, you know, please check out the other broadcasts on this channel. Please come along to a Zoom meeting. You know, we have a solution. You know, it begins with abstinence and continues with a simple program of action on a daily basis. And you know, it's not a sprint; it's a marathon, not a sprint, isn't it, Max? You know, slow and steady wins the race. And you know, I think that willingness to help others is a sea change in someone's recovery. You know, when they realize that part of the solution is to be part of someone else's solution. You know, and you know, and if you have faith for it, you know, if you have faith that God can equip you to help others, it's a powerful thing. You know, and then over a period of time, again with consistency, you know, you see folks that you work with get increasingly well and increasingly free from alcoholism. You know, and they cross that bridge to normal living, don't they?
Yeah, indeed.
You know, so let's talk about staying clear of alcoholism whilst clean, because you and I know it's very possible to be physically clean from drugs, including alcohol, and yet still have alcoholic reasoning. What would you say has been your most important tools to staying free from, you know, from negative reasoning, from alcoholic reasoning?
I think.
You're a little bit quiet, Max. Could you come a bit nearer the microphone?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Is that better?
That's better.
So I think seeking guidance. I think seeking guidance from people in CA for a start, and actually trying to do it, actually practicing the you know, putting it into action in my everyday life. You know, trying to be the best person that I can be. Yeah, and obviously I think prayer comes into it for me, because I feel like God will give me the strength to do them things, to be able to be a better person. That's my thoughts on it at the minute.
Yes, absolutely, and yeah, I mean, you know, the spiritual toolkit is very helpful, isn't it? Prayer, meditation, pen to paper is a very powerful thing. One of my favorite steps is step 10. You know, like for example, you know, right now, God, what's the best outcome in this situation? You know, what's my motives here? What's the best outcome in this scenario? What is your will right now? You know, is a quick example of a spot check inventory, and I can do that audibly or inaudibly if I'm building that relationship with the creator. You know, and I can do that anytime. It doesn't mean I'll always remember to, but I can do. See, and it's like practice. You know, we practice the program. See, you know, you go to a doctor's practice. Well, we practice the program.
Indeed.
You know, practice practice, you know, we get better with doing these things, don't we? We live our way into right thinking, and
Yeah.
you know, so in terms of prayer, what sort of, what do you think has been most helpful to you? I mean, audible prayer, inaudible prayer, set prayers, written prayers. How does it work for you?
Well, I suppose I have audible and inaudible prayers. I have all sorts of prayers in my life, you know. And I do try and pray every morning when I get up. I try and pray in the evening before I go to bed. You know, that was something. I have a pillow at the bottom of my bed, and I just put it on the floor. And you know, I don't always kneel, but you know, a lot of the time, sometimes I do. Sometimes I just sit there and pray. And you know, so I try not to be. You know, I'm not legalist. You know, I'm not hard on myself with prayer. Like I'm not. Like, I have to do it this time. This time. I don't. I really try not to be like that with myself now. And there was a time when I think that I did, but it's very harmful doing it that way. You know, I feel like if for some people, you know, but yeah, I think just pouring my heart out and being as honest as possible in prayer, and having an open heart in prayer, and not, you know, not just saying things for the sake of saying them. You know, that's how my prayers go at the minute. And I yeah, I try and, because the point of me being in prayer is to get to have connection with God, to talk with God, and to, yeah, to have a,
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, in terms of step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve
yeah,
our conscious contact with God as we understood Him. You know, praying only to the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry it out. And on the screen here, we've got Bill's story, and it says up at the top, a price had to be paid. It meant destruction of self-centeredness. You know, it's often been said ego deflation and emotional sobriety are the gifts of this program. I must turn in all things to the Father of light who presides over us all. So that acceptance and surrender is a vital part, you know, of ego deflation, isn't it?
yeah, definitely.
You know, but all these things operate in the grace of God. That's the mysterious element, Max. I think that's why it's sometimes difficult to put these things in phrases and terms, because the unseen element is the power and will and heart of God.
Yeah,
You know, that's empowering all life on the planet at the present moment.
yeah,
You know, and I just want to talk about how we can have ups and downs in real life, Max. You know,
yeah,
and here's Bill. You know, he's had a transformation, and in the middle of the screen there, he felt as though a great clean wind of a mountaintop blew through and through. And he says God came to him suddenly and profoundly.
yeah,
You know, and then he thinks of all the other alcoholics. And on the next page here, he's in terrible depression and despair. You see it in the middle paragraph, middle of the page there, plagued
yeah,
by waves of self-pity and resentment. Right on the very next page in Bill's story.
yeah, yeah,
But that's life, you
yeah,
know. Particularly if you want to come and work in the trenches in the field of alcoholism on a daily basis, and get on the front line and work with folks that are half dead from addiction. You know, it's not all unicorns and pink roses.
definitely not.
You know,
Right.
sure, there's a lot of joy and happiness, of course there is, but folks die in these rooms. You know,
Mhm.
they do. You know, I've lost lots of folks over the years, Max, and that's the reality of it. So, you know, the solution that we have is the spiritual toolkit will never let you down. You know, and as long as we get into action, which we don't always do,
Yeah,
but if we do, the solution is always there, isn't it?
yeah, indeed.
You know, and I said to you before, well, I think I just said a few minutes ago as well, proactivity is the thing. You
Yeah,
know, I mean, you know, your get up and go hadn't got up and gone, had it?
no,
You know,
no, not
but
quite.
I work with some folks whose get up and go has got up and gone.
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
you know, they you know, and because of the cycle addiction, some folks, their self-esteem's on the floor. They're surrounded by consequences. They burned all the bridges,
Yeah.
you know, and it's a slow period of reconstruction. So some folks come, well, the reality is everyone in recovery comes in with a different set of consequences.
Yeah.
And everyone comes in with different levels of self-esteem and well-being. You know, some folks have had years destroying themselves, their families, and their lives, etc., etc. Some haven't. But the point I wanted to make is the ups and downs of life and how the spiritual toolkit always works: prayer, inventory, step work, meeting, attendance, service, support network.
Yeah,
Now,
definitely. I'd
in
like to say, you know, when I did have them moments where, you know, in early days, and I still have them now, but in early days, but I'd have them a lot, like where I'd want to use, I'd feel low, I'd feel all that self-esteem and stuff comes in. I'd talk to someone in C.A. I would pick up that spiritual tool, yeah, I'd meditate and pray, and I wouldn't use, but sometimes I'd still have them feelings, but they always pass. They always come and go. Like my sponsor always said that to me. He was always talking about how thoughts and feelings, they come and go, but the truth stays the same. You know, something like that. The truth stays the same. But
Absolutely, the
yeah,
truth remains the same because
yeah,
God is the truth. You know, if
yeah,
you're building a relationship with God and maintaining conscious contact, you know, and when I work step 2, Max, you know, we talk about the ways and means in which we're restored to right thinking. You know, principally in the first instance around drink and drugs.
yeah,
You know, well, the bigger picture is that we get restored to sanity in every other area if we press into God. And if we improve that conscious contact and practice these principles, you know,
yeah,
and try to be helpful and harmless to others, you know, we get a complete transformation in these rooms, don't we?
yeah, indeed, yeah,
You know, I mean, this is the end, the last couple of paragraphs of Bill's story here. Um, you know, there's a deadly earnestness. You know, we do have, a joke around, but it's a serious business.
yeah,
You know, I was working today with someone who, you know, they might not make it through. You know, they might not be here in a few months, Max. That's what we're dealing with.
uh,
You know, so but at the same time, we have to keep ourselves reasonably joyful and free in those circumstances. And it says here, faith has to work through us 24 hours a day. You know, and that's the bottom line. I said to an addict recently, so you know, you have to remain vigilant. You know, and we have to remain vigilant from when we wake up to when we go to sleep.
yeah,
Thankfully, there is a balance, and the grace of God carries us. I believe there is a balance
yeah,
where, you know, you do a certain amount and you feel content with that. It's like service. Well, you can go overboard on anything.
yeah. I feel like you can as well. Yeah,
You can go overboard on anything. You have to have a balance,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. I
and
agree with
can
that.
it can seem elusive. But the reality is you still have to be vigilant,
Yeah,
you know, with your thoughts. It says here, most of us feel we need look no further for utopia. We have it right here, right now. My friend's simple talk every day in our kitchen multiplies itself into a widening circle of peace on earth and goodwill to all men.
yeah, yeah. It's a phenomenal story, isn't it? Really, the whole story of AA and Bill's story.
Yeah, and Bill was a drug addict as well. You
Yeah,
know, he would
yeah,
take sedatives and alcohol, and alcohol is a drug anyway. So
yeah,
anyone that drinks alcoholically is also a drug addict, whether they like it or not. It's a
yeah.
chemical reality. Um, you know, let's talk about meetings. What part, how important have 12-step meetings been to you, both online and face to face, Max?
Well, I think they're a substantial part of my recovery the whole way through. You know, and I've tried to keep them as consistent as possible, and I still do. And um, I find, yeah, but like you said, there's got to be a balance. You know, I don't at the start. You know, I try and do impactful meetings where I can be of service best I can, you know, now anyway. And I'd say, yeah, the ones that you need to, you know, it's where you get it's where you hear other addicts and talking about their stuff, and it's where you get the hope. It's where you get the guidance. There's a lot of guidance. There's a lot of you know. So I think they're absolutely paramount. If you if you want to get recovered, meetings are paramount. You know. So yeah, I generally think they'll be a part of my life for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think the great thing about meetings is that, you know, particularly with the Zoom, there's so many of them now that you can always get into a meeting.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And my experience, Max, with Zoom meetings is I almost always hear what I need to hear.
Yeah.
You know, and the times when I might not, if I stick around and just keep listening for a few minutes, I will hear what I need to hear. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that every syllable you hear is exactly what you need to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Generally and severally, I always hear what I need to hear in a meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And it's a miracle of grace that is the case.
Yeah.
You know, and that's been consistently the case. And I think the mystery is, Max, you know, because persons get very confused about the will of God, or what is the will of God? What is the will? Well, the
Yeah.
will of God is that you're happy, harmless, healthy, and helpful.
Yeah.
Happy, harmless, healthy, and helpful. That's it. You know, it's not unknowable. And when you align yourself with that, then the power of God aligns itself with you, as it were, you know.
Yeah.
And then I think the thing is yes, there is a balance, but the great question is how productive do you want to be,
Yeah.
and how purposeful and useful do you want to be when that great day happens and the books are opened for the life of everyone on earth.
Yeah.
What do you want your book to say? I think that's a great exercise. You know, they talk about legacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I had a friend who he came and recorded a podcast on this very channel, Max, last year, and you know, he had brain cancer, and I knew by revelation as we were doing that recording that would be part of his legacy for C.A, for recovering addicts. And he passed on at the end of last year, you know, and he was a lovely chap, and he was still sponsoring, and he was still putting his number out there for sponsorship. And he was terminally ill, you know,
Wow.
and he's got a podcast on this channel. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, you know, addiction is self-centered. It's a self-centered disease. It's distorted perceptions. Well, it's ultimately delusion. I was talking with an addict today, Max, about how, you know, to think that we could live like that and still maintain jobs, relationships, finances, health and sanity whilst getting loaded. That's the ultimate delusion.
Of course. Yeah. I think that's a big part of addiction as a whole. You know, it's the way of life more than anything. The way the delusion, the deception, and all that, all the lying, all that sort of stuff. I think is yeah, that's a big part of it. The way of life. You know, and then when we come into recovery and you look into not just you're not just looking to quit drinking drugs. It's the way of life you've got to leave behind. Not just drinking drugs. It's the whole way of life. You know. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you know, I've seen that many miracles over the years, and it's been folks that have took the clear-cut directions and simply done them.
yeah,
You know, it's not cost them a penny. It's not done them any harm, and they've got productive lives. You know, they're responsible
yeah,
members of society today, and you know, it's just a miracle of God's grace. And you know, I believe that any addict can lose the desire to use and find a new way to live. I really do. You
yeah,
know. So, you know, we're coming towards the end of today's recording. So I just want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And I want to say, wherever you see this posted on intherooms.com, Skype, WhatsApp, or indeed here at YouTube, Please feel free to get involved in the conversation below. Get yourself some literature on the screen. We use various books, a book called The Quiet Peace, Hope, Faith and Courage 1 and 2, a book called Alcoholics Anonymous, which we have called the Big Book, which we've had on the screen today during Max's share. We also use another book called The 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Those latter two can be listened to or read, as I've already said, anytime at aa.com, I should say, or on aa.com. And as I say, please get yourself to a meeting, and on the screen now is a list of meetings. If you're welcome at these meetings wherever you are in the world, of course, but in UK times, there's meetings on throughout the day. All the ones in blue are on every single day. So there's lots of meetings, and there's a lot of support out there. So thanks so much for coming along, Max. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
I don't think there is, Paul. Stay open-minded and willing and honest.
I suppose we ought to mention the importance of sponsorship. I know you did mention your sponsor. It's a strong suggestion to get a sponsor.
Of course, yeah.
Me and Max are occasionally found, perhaps more than occasionally found, at a meeting called We Can Recover that's on 3 times every single day, 2 p.m, 8 p.m, 9:30 p.m. UK time. And we maintain a current list of male and female sponsors. The sponsor is someone that's knowledgeable about recovery, has some continuous sobriety and a working knowledge of our basic text, Alcoholics Anonymous, the Big Book, and he's willing to altruistically take you through the 12-step process so you can be liberated from the obsession to drink and drug yourselves to destruction. So if you would like to get a sponsor, come along to We Can Recover, or indeed put your number in the chat wherever you see this posted, and we'll reach out to you and offer you some more help, perhaps get the list to you. Thanks so much, Max. Always great to hear you, buddy.
Thank you so much for you, Paul.
You're so welcome. We'll be back soon with the recording. Until then, stay strong, stay safe, family.